A regular meeting of the City Council was held in person on Thursday, April 25th, 2024 at 7:00 p.m. for the purpose of transacting any and all business. Notice of this meeting was posted on April 23rd, 2024 at 10:28 a.m. This meeting is being recorded and is live on SATV and Zoom unless technological issues interrupt the transmission. Councilors absent? None. Council President presided. Councilor Varela moved to dispense with the reading of the previous record. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. President Hapworth requested that everyone please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilor Cohen. To the flag of the United States of America. To the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Salem City Council honors this land as Namkeg, or fishing place, where generations of Namkeg people from the Pawtucket Band of the Massachusetts tribe lived and passed through for centuries. We acknowledge this is unceded indigenous land and also acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe will continue to honor and hold this land into the present. Salem's City Council is committed to having ongoing meaningful dialogue with indigenous peoples who have presence in Salem in order to dismantle the legacies of oppression and inequities that persist today. Public testimony. Public testimony is not to exceed 16 minutes. Public testimony is not a public hearing or question and answer period. Sign-up occurs 30 minutes prior to the meeting. The president shall, depending on the number of speakers, set a time limit not to exceed 3 minutes, which each individual presenting testimony shall abide by. We have 16 people signed up, so that gives each person rounded up to 57 seconds. First individual is Isaac Balmaceda. Okay. Skylar Clark.
All right. So you've seen plenty of me, and I'm sure you know what I'm here to talk about. So if I have one question for the council tonight, it's what do you think is an adequate time to ask a homeless person to give you $300? And what would they have to do to make you feel as though you're owed $300 worth of what little they have? Regardless of when this clause in the ordinance that you're going to vote on gets enforced or how, the understanding is that upon passage of this amendment, every unsheltered person in Salem owes you hundreds of dollars, and you, in your benevolence, can choose not to collect. At what point does a demand like this gain its legitimacy and transform from robbery to a fine? Councilor Presnewski said at the first hearing of this ordinance in committee that this encampment has turned the city into slumlords, but I don't recall any slumlords I know of charging their tenants for their own eviction. Which city action has been clear since the beginning of this fight that we have a single demand? Remove the criminalization of tent camping from this ordinance.
Thank you, Skylar. Denisha Howell. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Hi, I'm here today to talk about the ordinance that's being proposed in terms of anti-camping. If you take a look at the statistics when it comes to this ordinance that's been implemented in different parts of the country, it does not work. When we have police officers going into these encampments and doing violent sweeps, those don't work. And I do not believe that these violent sweeps or criminalization in terms of penalties and fees are fair to the Namkeg that were occupiers of this land before we were all here. When the English settlers came here in 1626, they came here as squatters on Namkeg land, and the Namkeg did not impose any type of criminalization or fines. They instead extended compassion and kindness and taught the English settlers how to eat and survive off the land. There is no criminalization when they were doing trade with each other. So I'd just like you guys to keep that in mind when we move forward with.
Thank you, Denisha.
Thank you.
I'll remind everybody that we do have rules that we abide by in these chambers, which does include we don't allow applause among our body. We can't force anyone to abide by those rules in the public, but we do ask you to please give us that respect. Thank you. Applause. Up next is Ellen Simpson.
I'm Ellen Simpson, and I live at 1 Geneva Street. I'm here to speak about the camping ban. It seems inevitable that the ordinance will pass, and I questioned whether it even made sense to make a comment tonight. But in the end, I decided to speak, if only to lend support to the many people who are opposed to the ban. We have lots of people talking about trash at the South River encampment, but we could solve that problem with regular city trash pickup. We could provide portable toilets, which we make available for tourists at Halloween for very little money. The fact is that helping those at the encampment keep their area clean and providing for basic needs like toilets has not been a priority. I know many of you are sincere in your desire to help unhoused people in Salem, so I am not trying to point a finger at any individual. But when I take in the totality of people's opinions in support of the ordinance, there's a lot of talk about wanting what's healthy and safe for the people in the encampments, and I haven't heard any of these same people calling for helping them in ways that don't involve sweeping them from view. This ordinance makes me think of the expression that when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The ordinance is the tool you've been handed. Thank you.
Caitlin Tricome.
So in 2014, our neighbors in Beverly implemented a no camping ordinance that doesn't allow anyone to camp or store personal property in public spaces. And this has resulted in the surveillance and displacement of the unhoused community in Beverly. 6 unhoused residents have been arrested since 2016 and have had to go to court on criminal charges. Public Works picks up trash of people that are unattended and throws them away. It's unfortunate that we're trying to criminalize people who are just trying to survive. Since passing the Boston's camping ban, outreach workers used to see 20 to 30 patients a day around Mass and Cass and are now only seeing 4 to 10 people. This has directly led to the creation of a regional lockup facility that is booking people into county jail, and Boston police have made 238 arrests due to the city ordered sweeps and camping ban between November 2023 and February 2024. Unhoused people are simply afraid to access services around Mass and Cass because they could be picked up by police for simply being homeless. I'm concerned that by passing this amendment, we'll lose contact with people who we care about in our community, and the dangerous fines and arrests must be removed from this ordinance to protect our unhoused neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Justin Whittier.
Good evening, councilors. Justin Whittier, 10 River Street. I just want to address the proposed raise of fees for resident sticker passes and visitor passes. This has gotten a lot of reaction in our neighborhood, and I think from all around the city. These fee hikes are unreasonable and burdensome. So I just want to remind you all of something I'm sure you all already know, that fees can only be commensurate with the costs of the programs that administrate them. So I hope that you will dig in and make sure that any fee hike is going to be commensurate with the actual costs of administrating the programs, and not because, you know, Chelsea or any other municipality charges a certain amount. That's irrelevant. That has nothing to do. It has to do with what Salem's costs are. Salem is going to increase revenues by the change that's proposed now to have visitor parking passes in the October zone. So that's already.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you very much.
Next is Steve Kapantis.
Steve Kapanis. And just to follow that up about the resident parking. So in 2021, I have the numbers. We collected about $80,000 in sticker fees, and the cost of our program was about the equivalent of $80,000. So we're in a good position. This new fee increase will push it up to the city collecting $250,000. So you're going to be at $170,000 over, which means it's no longer a fee, it is now a tax, and against our state constitution. The last thing I'd like to talk about, it's been over a year and a half since we passed the weapons ordinance. Many of you in these chambers stood up on your soapbox and opined that it was about safety of our employees. It took several iterations to get an ordinance that was constitutional. It's in place. I've asked 4 or 5 times, where are the signs? You need to have signs in order to enforce that ordinance. You knew that then. If it was truly about public safety in our buildings, one of you, please take that up and get the signs posted.
Thank you, Steve. Exactly 57 seconds. Christopher Terry.
Hello, everyone. I am Chris Terry. I'm a veteran from 2003 to 2007. Spend half my paycheck living in New Derby and Lafayette, and the other half on A&J breakfast sandwiches. I think voting yes on the camping ban is a bad idea. Last time I was here, I mentioned I'm a cloud engineer, and when I make mistakes, billions of people notice. The worst situation of my career, though, there were only about 500 people, and it was a Colorado mountain town with a 911 system that was buggy. 911 system needed to be taken down for a while, but if we had done something just to make sure something was done, it would have been down for several days and we would have risked people's lives because things weren't planned properly. So since then, since 2 days ago, has the police chief gotten back to anybody about where they're storing things, how they're storing it, how they're tracking it, or any of those details? Has finance budgeted for the increased costs or the increased legal burdens that homeless sweeps cost most municipalities? And obviously this wouldn't go into the order.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Is Phil Laffey here?
Thank you, and good evening. I want to talk about the parking permit raise. Why 300% increase? What were the 6 communities that were studied in that study, in the supporting documents? When I looked at it, I see Revere is free, Beverly is free, Lynn is $20, but guest passes are free. Swampscott free, Newburyport 10, Boston free, Chelsea 10, guest passes $10, Everett $10, guest passes $25, Essex $20, but this is not for public roads. It's for public lots. Quincy free, Malden $15, guest passes $5, Medford 10, free guest passes, Nahant $10 includes beach, Gloucester $5, Newton $25, free guest, Cambridge 25 includes free guest. Why is there a notion to keep up with Joneses as the Park Commission study seems to suggest? And what are these fairy tale 6 communities? Most programs that I've listed have all ancillary.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Up next is J.H.
This is regarding Amendment 24. As we speak, 108 and counting students and protesters have been brutally arrested for encampment protests in Boston on Emerson College campus. This ordinance and the criminalization will allow police to brutalize people at will simply for having a tent up in public, due to a lack of housing or exercising their First Amendment right. As a veteran, this disgusts me beyond belief because I did not serve for this to be allowed. I served so people can have autonomy over their persons without criminalization, or so people can exercise their constitutional rights that we so proudly stand behind as a country. Not only is this ordinance statistically a failure in every place it has been enacted, it is a vile violation of our First and Eighth Amendment rights. Are we a free country or a militarized regime? If you allow this through, I think you've answered that question.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for your service. Lucy Shea.
Hi. Tents on the street is not a sign of drug use, criminal activity, or infestation. Tents on the street is a sign of a housing problem. A problem that isn't going away. I spent some time in other cities that chose developers and businesses over their people. Cities that invested in policing instead of affordable housing. I've seen their streets, and no camping ordinance or not, they're lined with tents, RVs, and makeshift shelters from plywood and 2x4s. Sorry. Because they didn't choose to build more affordable housing and shelters and turn their backs on capital interests, the problems compounded in a way that these cities feel are too big for them to now solve, despite causing the problems themselves. This is Salem's future if it chooses to tackle these problems with its citizens.
Thank you, Lucy.
Suffering from criminalization.
Thank you, Lucy. Up next is Chad Carboni.
Oh, it's not 2 minutes.
57 seconds each.
My name's Chad Carboni. I live at 10 Northeast Street. I'm concerned about the parking fees coming up. The resident stickers, the visitor passes, one of my concerns is the fact that most of the areas on-street parking is the only available option. Typically, the average lower or middle income people in more densely populated areas have to take this burden. The single-family homes, the single-family residents don't necessarily have to have a parking pass in those areas, and they're not burdened. So I believe a broad-based fee and tax is the way to go on any given fees. The broader, the better. So if there is a fee, it should be widely distributed throughout the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Is there anyone else in person here that I did not call? Okay, we'll move to the Zoom. So we're going to call your name and then use the raise hand function and we will unmute you. First is Mary Whitney. Mary, if you're listening, please use the raise hand function. Speak now, Mary.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Hi, Ty. It's good to see you all in the chambers. Sorry I can't be there. I want to speak about the increase in the residential parking passes, and the fellow just before me kind of summed up my thoughts. In my neighborhood, the folks who don't have driveways are the ones that probably can least afford such a price hike, and they have no other option but to park on the street. So I hope you reconsider the amount of this increase. It just seems, an inordinate amount, whatever I heard, 300%. And it's going to affect the folks that probably can least afford it, at least where I live. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Up next is Mr. Harry Roachville. Harry, you should be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, how are you? I'm calling in support of the ordinance. I think that this is a tool that the police department drastically needs to help them improve the quality of life of the residents and the businesses in the South River corridor. I was in charge of the community impact unit for the last 8 years of my career. There's so many other tools available to the police department, from in-house mental health clinicians, peer support specialists, and outreach workers. They need another tool at their discretion to be able to move people who refuse to obey the ordinances that are in place or would be in place. There's nothing in here that says that they don't have the discretion to move these individuals. Nothing says they have to be arrested. Nothing says they have to be fined. It's just another tool to assist the police department in creating a better quality of life for not only the people in this area, but the businesses and Salem in general.
Thank you, Harry. Veronica Miranda. Veronica, if you are out in Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We'll allow you to unmute yourself. You should be able to speak now, Veronica.
Hello. Good evening, members of the City Council and people in the public. Veronica Miranda, 64 Rainbow Terrace. I just want to speak on the Salem Housing Authority appointment of Aaron Paternoster. He's been a welcome addition to the board and is an ally with any tenant leaders that I've had the chance to connect with. So really just wanted to shout that out. And then briefly wanted to discuss the appointment process. As many of you know, city boards, the mayor puts people forward for city boards. The city council serves as checks and balances. And so it's really a balancing act between executive authority and legislative oversight, aiming to represent the interest of the community. And so I just want to ask one question. How will our city council actively ensure that both the composition of our boards and commissions are truly reflective of our community, and that the most silenced and outcasted voices are not only heard, but prioritized in any decision-making processes? Please keep in mind.
Miranda.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last up is Nick Nowak. Nick, if you're out on Zoom, please use the raise hand function and we'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Nick.
Okay, so I just wanted to speak up about the residential parking permit increase. When it jumps that much, it kind of raises eyebrows. I tried to look up. I saw on mapc.org about what Justin was saying, where it has to be essentially paying for the cost of administering the program, and I couldn't find. All I want is transparency so I can see what's going on when it jumps that high. That's all. I think it's going to burden people, as other people have said, and I imagine I could do some off the cuff calculations in my head. It just seems like that you're collecting much more than your than the administrative costs, and just transparency, please. That's it. Thank you very much. And 57 seconds is barely enough. Bye.
You did it in 43, Nick. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for giving public testimony tonight. I appreciate it. Up next is hearings, none. Appointments and reappointments.
Held from the last meeting, we have the mayor's reappointments of the following with terms to expire.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'd like to move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Varela moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'll be brief. Thank you for the continued advocacy for these boards. They're very important, and we appreciate all these people on this list. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. On Councilor Varela's motion for confirmation by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Harvey?
Yes.
Councilor Gerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Prasnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. On the reappointment of Joy Livermento, Bryant, Brendan Casey, and Aaron Paternoster, we have 11 councilors voting, 11 in favor, none opposed. The matter carries. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointment of Eliza Ruano Lucy to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board with a term to expire on May 26, 2026.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that this be held under the rules.
Councilor Varela moves this be held under the rules. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointment of Mark Iannuzzi as a constable with a term to expire on April 25th, 2027.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that this be received and filed.
Councilor Varela moves to be received and filed. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $10,000 is hereby appropriated and transferred from IT full-time salary to the Information Technology GIS fixed cost maintenance account to outsource the open IT technical support analyst position to Delphi Technology Solutions effective April 25th, 2024.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor Merkel moves to suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for adoption.
Councilor Merkel moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. In a letter in the backup documentation from our acting IT director, Roberta Gansenberg, she explained how the police department requires very specialized on-site tech support, and Delphi will not only provide that on-site support, but they will also provide public safety specific technical support skills that can be transferred onto our IT department. And the long-term goal is to permanently resolve many of the repeat tech issues that the police department, resulting in fewer hours spent on police department tech support. And due to the turnover in the IT department staffing this year, they have the funds for the vacant tech support position available to support this request. And another thing I found interesting, I spoke with Anna, and in regards to how beneficial this kind of specialized training is, the IT department has proposed for next year's budget, we zero out the salary position and increase the contracted service line item to accommodate specialized IT support. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Councilor Merkel's motion for adoption that the sum of $10,000 be appropriated and transferred to the IT GIS fixed cost maintenance account to outsource the open IT tech support position. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order to accept the donation from Miracle Auctioneer Services in the amount of $1,200 to the Parks and Rec Department.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for adoption.
Councilor Merkel moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. This donation is for a bench, and we thank Miracle Auctioneer Services for their generosity.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Councilor Merkel's motion for adoption to accept the donation from Miracle Auctioneer Services in the amount of $1,200 to the Parks and Rec Department. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an ordinance to amend the ordinance relative to October parking prohibitions.
Councilor Morcello.
Do I have to read it? Do I have to read it? Okay. I move that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole.
Councilor Merkel moves to refer to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole. Under discussion.
Thank you, President. I just want to say that this and the following, the one about the regular resident parking, will be referred so that we can have a full discussion and so that the traffic and parking director can provide the information that the public is requesting. I do want to say that one of the most common complaints with resident-only parking and with October parking is the enforcement. And this will allow us to get the plate readers that are required to put on city vehicles and to then hire people to enforce the resident-only parking. It's a costly venture. Each one of the license plates needs to be registered with the city, and we need to know like which zone that's in. Part of the other thing that's happening with the ordinance is redefining those resident parking zones so that it's not by ward, which never makes sense because wards are right next to each other and you have different parking rules. So there's a lot being done to rewrite and to make the ordinance related to resident parking and October parking make more sense and make it more enforceable and to keep residents happier about what's happening. Thank you.
On Councilor Morcello's motion to refer to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted to the Committee of the Whole. All those in favor? I'm sorry. Is there any additional discussion? I apologize. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an ordinance to amend the ordinance relative to parking prohibitions full-time. Yes.
Councilor Morcello.
Thank you, President. I move to refer this to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole.
Councilor Morcello moves to refer to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole. We had that discussion, but any further discussion? Any additional discussion? Seeing none. On Councilor Morcello's motion to refer to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. So for those watching at home and in the chamber, that was the parking. And we'll have a committee meeting scheduled for that where we can discuss that further. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Sorry.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that's be held under the rules. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. City of Salem, April 25th, 2024. order that the City Council reappoint Deborah Grill and Kate Martin to the Community Preservation Act Committee with their terms to expire May 23rd, 2026. And I move that's to be held under the rules.
Councilor Varela moves to be held under the rules. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Presniewski.
Thank you, President. The regular meetings of the City Council for the months of July and August be combined and held on Thursday, July 11th, 2024, and the City Council meeting for November and December be held on Thursday, November 14th, 2024, and December 5th, 2024, respectively. And I move that this matter be adopted.
Councilor Presniewski moves for adoption under discussion.
Thank you, President. This is a past practice of the council, trying to avoid the Thursday Thanksgiving meeting and combining the meetings earlier for the summer break. It does not mean that we definitely cannot hold meetings, because we can. If there are issues that come up and need a meeting, we can do that. But this time is allotted to give us time to evaluate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. So last year and the year before, I voted against this, and I was joined by Councilor McLean, and since now I'm by myself, I'm not going to vote against it. I'm going to vote present, but I do want to stress that one of the things that came up during this vote the last 2 years is that we have a robust committee process, and committees can meet during the summer, and that really didn't happen last year. So I'm just going to say I hope we have a robust committee process through the summer, because we have a lot of work to do. And so I'm going to vote present, but I appreciate this happening, and I look forward to seeing some or all of you this summer.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Councilor Presniewski's motion for adoption of the City Council regular meeting calendar for July, November, and December, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Recording Councilor Cohen as voting present. Apologies. Let's do that again so we're a little faster. All those in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Matter carries. Committee reports. Councilor Morcello.
City of Salem and City Council, April 25th, 2024. The Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter of granting secondhand clothing and secondhand valuable licenses to Dunn, has considered said matter and would recommend that the licenses be granted.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. On the recommendation for adoption of granting the licenses for clothing and valuables, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Morcello.
Thank you, President. City of Salem and City Council, April 25th, 2024. The Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter of amending an ordinance relative to water and sewer, Chapter 46, Section 35, meters, estimated readings, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption for first passage.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. On the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President. We had a really good and interesting discussion on the water meter issue and the how they're trying to solve the matter of estimating bills when they can't read the meter, when the meter's broken. So we talked about the estimation procedure that they're going to be using, because our current ordinance states that they're billed, the resident would be billed at 200 gallons per person per day, but there's really no way of knowing how many people are in that unit or that home. So they're going to be looking back through 12 meter readings for those that are billed monthly, and they'll look back through 3 years of meter readings for those who are billed quarterly. and come up with an estimate the best that they can. And the whole goal here is so that they're not over or undercharging to the point that when the meter is fixed, the resident is left with a very large bill or a very large credit, which has been happening. We did talk about the fact that the city is looking into new meters because we are at the end of the 10-year lifespan for these meters. The radio transponders are breaking, which is why we're having the problems with the meter readings. And the city will likely move on to a small pilot program to test out a new meter that has a better track record and also more capability as far as what the resident can see for the use of their own water meter, and to kind of help figure out some issues that they might be seeing, even if they're remote, if they're not at their home at the time.
Further discussion? Councilor Varela.
Of course, when water meters come up. Thank you, Councilor President Hapworth. Thank you again, Councilor Marcello, for having this meeting. Ever since we've been here in this seat here, I've always wanted to have a more thoughtful conversation about either how do we replace the water meters we have, because we have so many issues, but also the conversation of water conservation and also incentivizing and letting our residents know that deduct meters are available. And it seems like something that is helping the city when we do have defective meters to also have another data point to establish where those readings are. So I'm looking forward to the continued conversation. And thank you, Mr. Sam Mustafa, for being with the city and taking this on.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the recommendation for adoption for first passage, all those in favor? Any opposed? The matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. City of Salem and City Council, April 25th, 2024. The Committee on Public Health, Safety, and the Environment co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter of the camping ordinance, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption for first passage as amended.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. On the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. So on Tuesday, Jason Etheridge of LifeBridge presented. Solicitor Renard walked through the proposed revisions, including more sensitive and directed purpose, with a half a mile from public transit based on a more exact 15-mile radius. An increase from 48 to 72 hours notice. Consideration for those employed in Salem, expanded posting, and all those revisions passed 4-0 as we had one councilor not present. There was a lot of serious deliberation and input from Jason, Chief Miller. 34 people did public testimony. And there was a consensus within the council that this ordinance is necessary and sensitive to address an unhealthy situation and provide safety with as few rules as possible. The ordinance was, and really in simplicity, the city, if this ordinance passes, does not initiate movement of anyone without being able to provide an option of a transition center or shelter, and people are not forced to accept it, and they are allowed to leave the space if they desire. The ordinance was referred to council with a positive recommendation, and that was also approved with the changes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Watson-Felt.
Thank you, President Hapworth. And I was unfortunately the member of the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee member who was committee that was absent this week due to some work travel. And I want to first let everyone know that, I was able to watch some of the meeting and debrief with the chair. And, we have read all of your comments and all of your letters. And I was grateful to Skylar from Which City Action for taking the time to meet with me, the Community Impact Unit. We are in pretty close contact on a regular basis as the liaison anyways, but we met as well. We toured the location of the South River where the encampment is, the encampment getting the most attention in Salem, I should say, is located. And I also have visited the auxiliary shelter with the new 50 beds. And I have been, I've made plenty of comment, I think, in past committee meetings around the importance for helping people who need help. And part of that is enabling the breaking of unhealthy and abusive cycles. And I feel really strongly about that. And so even though that there are parts of this that I have struggled with, I think ultimately, it is the right thing to do. That having been said, I do offer one more amendment with my apologies to the committee, because I know it was extremely well deliberated and everybody took into account, I think, everybody's thoughts. And so I know I'm late to the party, but I did have an opportunity to speak to the city solicitor and the chief of police today. And I would like to offer an amendment, which in my mind is actually rather a common sense exclusion. It is in my mind, and it is my personal opinion, that it is nonsensical, borderlining on immoral, to charge fines to unhoused individuals. And so under the portion of the ordinance, which is violations, let me go to where it is. On the last page, where we have penalty for violations, Section A reads, currently, all enforcement methods authorized by law, including issuance of a warning, GLC 40S21, which is the specific reference to Mass General Law, which includes the ability to charge, or enforcement authorized by General Law, Chapter 272, Section 59, ordinances or regulations relating to streets, etc. My proposed amendment is that we insert the language excluding fines for the unhoused, where it reads, all enforcement methods authorized by law, excluding fines for the unhoused, but including issuance of warning, striking reference to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21, and then remaining the rest untouched. Chair Cohen has received this language as well. We had a chance to circle before I got on a plane today, and I think I feel like we cannot put forward an ordinance that cannot be enforced. That having been said, General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21, which is the charging of fees in format of a citation, basically is to people without property is unenforceable anyways. So I think we have a moral obligation to remove it. I think it makes sense to remove it and exclude unhoused individuals. That having been said, I want to make really transparent to those listening at home that does mean fees are still on the table for anyone with property who may be violating this ordinance. So anyone, which may include students protesting, it may include people deciding to camp on the common for the weekend, and everybody in between. So I just want to be really clear about that. How should I?
Councilor Watson-Feld has offered an amendment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Varela. Under discussion. Had some discussion. And
that's the. Oh, sorry. Thanks, President. I appreciate that.
Councilor Prozniewski.
Thank you. As with all ordinances and laws in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they always come with the whole parameter of dispositions, depending on the crime, depending on the individual's ability to be able to fulfill their obligation to the court. Having spent 11 years as the police liaison to the court, I can tell you that the court system does not fine people who do not have money. They don't do that. We're not going to be fining homeless individuals. The alternative to fines, a lot of times people take the alternative, whether they have money or not, is community service. So I don't think that there's a reason that we strike this, because the community service aspect of this is an alternative to a fine. And maybe community service is a proper disposition rather than fining someone, especially someone who doesn't have any money. So I'm not going to support this amendment, because there are no laws or ordinances that separate fines. Like the retired Sergeant Harry Roachville said, there are a lot of tools. And the fine is one tool, but it's not the end-all tool. And we certainly aren't going to be fining people who have no ability to be able to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move on to further discussion, Councilor Watson-Feld, could you expound on what the city solicitor said in that conversation?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to, and I'll include comments from the chief of police as well. As Councilor Presnewski indicated, in fact, enacting any of these are to the discretion of the law enforcing agent. So whoever has the power to enforce can be discretionary about what they choose to do. An officer may choose not to cite an individual. An officer may also choose to cite an individual. And in the instances where we have an unhoused individual, that person should not be receiving a citation. We need to codify in my opinion, we need to codify into the ordinance that we're going to at least do this small protection for our unhoused individuals so that they are not further burdened financially. Some of them have jobs, right? Some of them do have lives and they're trying to get back on their feet. I think it's incredibly immoral that it even is referenced. So, the potential of a court choosing to offer community service in lieu of a citation that a police officer may choose to give is subjective in my mind. And I think that the least we can do is strike it because it's added process. It's added administrative process on all sides. Right now, what this means is if you are an unhoused individual, it means you may be given a warning and you may be asked to move and you may be moved. Right, if you're in violation. So this ordinance still has the teeth I think it's intended to with regards to giving the police department and agents who are able to enforce what they need with regards to tools in the toolkit. And I think that this added potential fee and the subjectivity around it is just really unnecessary. To answer your question, city solicitor had no problem with this, offered no additional conversation around courts because it's entirely about how we interact with these people as a city. So the courts are the courts' problem and that's their business. Right now, this is about what we as a body are putting forth and how we say we want to see our city and our enforcers engage with these people who are in violation. And I think it's really important that we make clear what we mean about that, regardless of what the courts may do. Thanks.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I just want to clarify, it's okay with you, because I also had conversations with the solicitor and the police chief that it's not that the solicitor didn't have a problem. Her job is to create the most legal ordinance possible. And so she, before I spoke to them, she had a conversation with Councilor Watson-Feld and the police chief and deferred to the police chief on his thoughts. And then she came up with the legal language, if that makes sense.
Councilor Watson-Feld.
Thank you. It was absolutely an opinion statement that I made, and I appreciate Councilor Collins' clarification. City solicitor did not say she did not have a problem with it. I don't want that going on record. She did exactly what she's been asked to do. There were no objections to the amendment legally. Thank you.
Councilor Jerslow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So my understanding, the only tool that the police will have is to arrest the person, correct? Well, I don't understand. You're saying take out the fee. If I was I'd rather be fined. If you want to cut it down $300 to say $50, then I would be okay with that. That if I'm going to be arrested or fined, I would definitely rather be fined, like a ticket in my hand, than have to go into the court, be booked through the police department, go through the whole process of going to court, going to hearings. I know all about it, just like Councilor Presnewski. I know the court system very well. I would rather get a ticket for $50 and pay that fine than get arrested. Thank you.
President Hapworth, may I comment?
Before any further discussion on that? Councilor Isabel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. So as it is written, it is all enforcement methods authorized by the law. That may include, we call out specific things here, which includes warnings, arrests, and everything else available under the law that is authorized for leveraging by enforcers. I asked the chief specifically today, are there other things? And he said, yes, there is a lot of discretion. There are options. The language specifically says all enforcement methods authorized by law. This removal excludes the fine from unhoused individuals. That is the only change. So it is not simply nothing or you are arrested. Is that helpful?
make sure we're addressing comments through the chair. And I'll just add that there are a limit of 2 times to speak in a council meeting, which we give some leeway to there. Any further, Councilor Stott?
Can I just request, Council President, what the actual amendment is, the language that we're discussing? I'm a little confused.
Councilor Watson-Felt, do you want to read the?
Thank you. If you all want to read along, I'll read the new language. Is that helpful? Okay. It's the very last page under penalties. If you flip over your edition, we've been given this tonight, the printout. Here, I'm happy to hand it to you. It's on the back. Section A, right there at the top. All enforcement, sorry, is everyone ready? I'm happy to give you a sec. Okay. No? Oh, it's in the backup. You have the, oh, okay. Well, let me do it this way then. Alice, let me have that back. Thanks. We're going to read it as it is, and then I'll read the suggestion. Okay. As it is currently in front of the body for vote tonight, all enforcement methods authorized by law, including issuance of a warning, GLC 40 S21, or enforcement authorized by GLC 272 S59, in parentheses, ordinances or regulations relating to streets, reservations, or parkways, alcoholic beverages, profanity, arrest without a warrant, end parentheses. If the Salem Police or other duly authorized officer on scene determines a violation of General Law, Chapter 272, Section 59, has occurred in their presence. The new suggestion, which is the motion on the table, seconded by Councilor Varela. All enforcement methods authorized by law, excluding fines for the unhoused, but including issuance of a warning or enforcement authorized by GL Chapter 272, Section 59, ordinances or regulations relating to streets, reservations, or parkways. Is that it? Yes. I am happy to go back. To which part? The new. Okay. All enforcement methods authorized by law. This is inserted now. Excluding fines for the unhoused. Continues as same, but including issuance of a warning, removing reference to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21. This is the new language. But let me be clear about that. The new language, just because we are removing the reference to it in the list, does not mean it's not enforceable. It is still enforceable to anyone that has personal property who is not unhoused. So we could leave that in the list if you want. Right? That's not the motion. The motion was to remove the reference, but it is still considered part of all enforcement methods authorized by law. We can leave it. The only thing, really what I'm after here is the excluding fines for the unhoused and inserting that.
Go Councilor Cohen first, then Councilor Harvey.
I'm just going to clarify because I gave my copy to Councilor Watson-Felt. In the sentence as it was, it adds the inclusion and removes one of the general laws that are included in the paragraph. There's 3 general laws included in the paragraph. It's only removing the second one. So it just has with the highlighted part. Okay. So it's not changing anything except adding the exclusion words and then subtracting the following general law that goes after that.
Councilor Harvey and then Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, Council President. I guess where I have a problem with this is if we start saying you don't have to pay a fine, but yet you still do,
where does that, I just don't see how that's correct in any way, shape, or form, because it's separating the two. I mean, the law is the law. If you want to reduce the fine down to a $50, and like Council Presnewski said, when they go to the judge is probably just going to throw it out anyways. But I don't think we should be separating the public into two different categories, saying it's okay for you to pay a fine and it's not okay for you. It's just not right. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Council Morsillo. Any other further discussion? Council Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I had a question about the fine that's in the original language. I would wonder if there can be confirmation that the office have discussion on the amount. I know they have discussion about even issuing a fine, but they can issue as small amount as possible. There's just not one financial amount that they have to issue. They can use their discretion to make it any amount, $5, $50. And also just, to the point that was just made, I'm confused that we're leaving the ability to fine someone if they have property. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not following it 100%.
Councilor Watson-Feld, can you clarify?
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'm going to try this again. Basically, if someone is unhoused, they should not be charged a fee, period. That's the position. What it means, to the comments about the Master General Law, yes, clarification on Master General Law is that it is the language says you can be charged up to a maximum of $300. That is discretionary. So a ticket can be written by whomever is writing the ticket for whatever amount up to $300 in accordance with Mass General Law. So this concept of a $300 fee, that's the maximum possible ticket price. Okay. The second issue is separating people. There was raised to me today on the call with our city solicitor, who's the legal representative of the municipality, that there was not an issue raised with separating people who can and cannot be fined. The concept of charging any dollar amount to an unhoused individual, in my mind, is added process, added cost to the city, nonsensical, and frankly immoral. It feels a little predatory in my mind. So again, we are covered by all authorized means of enforcement. We are making an exception for charging fines to unhoused individuals, and that is the only change.
Just to Councilor Watson-Feld, just to get to Councilor Merkel's question. I think she was trying to get at how are we defining property? How are we defining
that comment
who's unhoused, who's not unhoused, I guess.
Can I clarify from the solicitor what the difference is?
Did you have an answer to that, Councilor Watson-Feld? You want me to kick it over to Councilor Cohen?
You are welcome to kick it over to Councilor Cohen.
So the concept that was explained to me by the solicitor is this: that if someone is fined for anything, a parking fine or anything, any kind of fine that happens, if the person chooses not to pay the fine, and some fines are, added onto each other, compounded, whatever, at some point when the entity that enforces the fine tries to retrieve the money, the only recourse they can retrieve the money is to attach it to property. It could be a lien or something else. That is why there's a difference between people who have property that could be liable to have attached some kind of, that could be attached to someone who doesn't. And so what the police chief was saying is that, and I think said it briefly at the meeting on Tuesday, was the assumption is that anyone who is unhoused does not have property where they could retrieve money eventually if the fine isn't paid. That was the the clarification of what the difference is, that the assumption is that if someone is unhoused, whether they have money or not, they may not have like a house or something where it could be attached like a lien to the property. I'm just clarifying what the rationale was.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. So I respect and understand the intent of the amendment. What I find that I think will get confusing is if you have language that if someone's unhoused, that they wouldn't be eligible for a fine. I would think that could get tricky if somebody's staying with a friend. Are they not unhoused? But if they stayed if they're currently with a relative or a couple of days a week, they have somewhere where they live. I just think it might get tricky to sort that out. I'm having trouble sorting it out, and I'm always a little leery of language in ordinances that will be confusing because I find that a little confusing. But I also haven't had time to digest it because it's in front of us tonight. But yeah, just wanted to express those concerns. Thank you,
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, President Hapworth. It feels like the due diligence has been done on this. It feels like we've talked to the city solicitor, who is very good at a job, is responsible for figuring out if things are legal and able to enforce. So I would really lean on that expertise there, and just want to, support the point that it is indeed immoral to be fining unhoused people. I think it's absolutely appropriate to treat different people differently. There, I think it would absolutely be immoral to be placing that. I think that if we listen to the intent that was described to us by the mayor that brought into this ordinance, who gave a very lovely speech about how we are trying to house people here. If we are imposing a fee, whether it's $50, $300, we are setting someone backwards from that goal of being housed. It does not make sense. It should not be in this ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Prozniewski.
Thank you. To kind of clarify what Councilor Merkel had a little confusion and Councilor Harvey was trying to say, and let's get back to constitutional law, something that I think a lot of lawyers, including our city solicitor, would agree with. Justice is supposed to be blind. There are scales of justice. There's a blindfold on Lady Justice. That's because laws are made equally for all. They do not segregate whether somebody is rich or somebody is poor or somebody is this or somebody is that. Justice is equal across the board. So whatever we do tonight, and again, we find ourselves in a debate, whatever we do tonight isn't segregating one person from another. The law bends this way for this type of person, but it only bends that way for that type of person. No, that's not what justice is, and that's not what the law says. So I think that we would, if we passed this amendment, there would be an argument later on about, is this legal to be done? Because it's not seeking equal justice for all. I would go along with Councilor Watson-Felt's amendment just to get this passed, to get this through, because that's not the big picture. Big picture isn't fines. The big picture is saving lives and getting people healthier. So my suggestion would be, if it's legal, we can change it later, but let's get this rolling. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Councilor Morso for a second.
Thank you. Agreed. I think we can simplify it. Can we just add the one phrase, excluding fines for the unhoused, but including, leave everything else in there, leave all the Mass General Law in there, just add that one phrase. Let's give it a try. If there's issues with this, if the police find that they're having problems enforcing and moving people along without resorting to full arrest and going through that process, then we can come back and make a change to it. But I agree. If we're finding people that have no money, that makes zero sense to me.
Before we move on and comment, I think we probably have the votes to pass this amendment, but Councilor Cohen.
I know I've exceeded too, but most of my comments were just clarification of what I was told. I'm going to respectfully disagree with people who think that we should lower a fine from 300 to 20 or 50 or whatever. And the rationale that I am stating is this. I don't think it's up to us to figure out how much an unhoused person can afford. You know, for someone like me, maybe $300 is a reasonable amount, but for some other people that I know, $20 could be really burdensome. And I really don't want the ordinance to kind of make that determination. I'm going to vote for this because I think it's, you know, we know that there's discretion of our departments, whether it's the health department, the police department, you know, whatever, in implementing this ordinance. This ordinance has things like reasonable and things like that, and effort to, for example, Councillor Davis's thing about people who work here, to make a reasonable effort to not ask people to accept the shelter or transition center outside of Salem if they work here. So I don't want to assume that we know what an unhoused person can afford. I'm assuming that they really can't afford hardly anything. And it's up to us as a society to change that paradigm. So the reason I'm voting for this is because this is another discretionary paragraph in this. The detail in this is what I'm voting for. So I'm going to vote for this for that reason. And I also just don't want us to say that the amount of a fine is appropriate, because this isn't like a resident parking thing.
Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do also agree with the spirit of the amendment, and I just want to make sure that the motion on the floor for the amendment has been amended to just include that additional language that Councilor Marcilla mentioned. So the amendment that we're discussing now, yeah. So as long as there is a motion to make I'll just finish my talk. So as long as there is a motion to make that amendment, I am in support of it. I think I understand the gist of it, but it was just too much of me to digest right now. I just can't do it. And I have too many questions, and I don't want to hold up what your spirit of the amendment is. And that can be done further down the line if needed. But I think adding those simple lines right there gets to that gist. But I just want to make sure that the motion is there.
Councilor Marcilla.
I make a motion to edit, to amend that paragraph, friendly amendment. It's an amendment, to simply add the phrase excluding fines for the unhoused, but including. That's the
second. Needs one. So I just need clarification, Madam City Clerk. I'm sorry. So is this an amendment to Councilor Watson-Felt's amendment? Is this how I'm understanding this? Just the amendment? Is this 2 votes or 1 vote? This is the entire. Got it. But we don't need to take. We have to take hers up also. Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. So on the amendment, all those in favor? Councilor Morcillo's amendment. Do you want any further discussion? Okay. Councilor Merkel.
Yes, thank you, President Hapworth. Since this is a second amendment offered, and I do want to understand what I'm voting on. Like I said, I'm very happy with the intent. I just always want to know what I'm voting on, and this is presented tonight. So, just want to be clear. So, without the fines, what is left for the enforcement? Does that mean materials, like there can still be removal of items, or just, and I support I just didn't, or is this a different discussion on, just a little clarity on what it affects in the rest of it. Just one more, and you even already said it, just a second go around for that. Thank you.
Councilor Wasserfeld.
Thank you, President Hapworth. To answer Councilor Merkel's question through you, there is absolutely no effect on the rest of the ordinance. This is simply one exclusion under penalty violations, penalty violations, which is that we are saying now in enforcement that we will not charge a fee. We will not cite somebody who is in violation, who is unhoused. Nothing else changes. There's no change to any reference to personal storage, personal property, physical movement of people, arresting, any of that. Everything stays the same. We are simply only now excluding charging a citation to unhoused individuals. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Further discussion? Councilor Prozinski?
Just quickly, because I'm also confused, we're going to be voting on two amendments. The first one is going to be, do we accept we're going to be voting on two issues. The first one is the amendment as proposed by Councilor Watson-Feld as to the changes. And then the second one.
Sorry, the first vote we'll take is Councilor Morsillo's amendment.
I am going to withdraw my motion in lieu of Councilor Morsillo's amended motion.
We're getting there.
Now we get one vote and then we vote on the whole thing. Thank you.
Second.
Good
on that.
Still under discussion. So we're voting one vote for the whole package.
One vote for this amendment that we've been discussing for the last hour and a half.
Exactly. Exactly. Which we shouldn't have been in the first place, but that's okay.
Nothing's easy always, so. Okay, so everyone clear on what we're voting on right now?
Yes.
Madam City Clerk, do we need to take a roll call or can this be a hand vote? I'd take a roll call vote. I think people want to be on the record, so. Okay. Okay. All those in favor? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, gotcha. I'm sorry. Okay. Thanks. Roberts. Okay. So, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll. Sure. So on the amendment, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Harvey?
No.
Councilor Gerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Morsillo?
Yes.
Councilor Prozinski?
No.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. And the amendment to the camping ordinance to insert after law excluding fines for the unhoused. We have 11 councilors voting, 9 in favor, 2 opposed. The amendment carries. Now on to the rest of the recommendation. Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. The two Public Health, Safety, and the Environment Committee meetings have contained some of the most important conversations we have had as a council because we were and are discussing human lives. Those who are the most in need of compassion and care. And historically, the city's response to the unhoused has been one of compassion and care. Our community impact unit is a shining example of compassionate policing through relationship building and guidance towards services and housing. Every municipality should have a community impact unit based on Salem's. The public testimony was powerful and heartfelt on both sides. Business owners spoke about how the campsite on the South River is affecting their business, their employees' safety, and their work environment. Members of Which City Action and others felt strongly that the ordinance is criminalizing homelessness and that by moving these individuals away from their community and their support systems, the city is putting the campers' health and lives at risk. Neighboring residents spoke about their fears when walking in their own neighborhood. One truth is inarguable. Every day that passes, the health and safety of the unhoused residents along the South River declines. Every human being should be in safe housing, especially here in New England, and certainly in that area which is seeing regular flooding. My heart hurts that as a society, we have not prioritized mental health as something more deserving of research and treatment funding. It breaks my heart to see someone suffering from substance abuse, sometimes leading to homelessness, and sometimes because of homelessness. These issues are bigger than Salem. We can do our part by providing emergency shelter when needed and by supporting mental health access for those in need. The city has added a neighborhood stability coordinator who has already assisted about 500 individuals in the last year, and housing stability service, which has assisted an additional 300. Maintaining these services must remain a priority, but we need stronger societal safety nets for the growing number of people who teeter towards homelessness through rent supports and voucher programs and legal counsel. And we need to focus supports on the growing number of young adults who leave the foster program and go straight into homelessness. This should not happen in our country. Homelessness is complex in so many ways. We would need the wisdom of Solomon and the deep pockets of Jeff Bezos to be able to come up with a perfect solution here in Salem when no solution is proved to be 100% effective anywhere in the country. We on the city council can only do what we can to keep everyone housed and unhoused safe and healthy. Right now, the campers are not safe or healthy. The residents of the Point are living close to a very unsanitary, unsafe campsite. Businesses are trying to overcome the negatives of the homeless campsite, and residents feel unsafe in a downtown area that is meant to be enjoyed by all. Most importantly, though, the unhoused are not living in safe or healthy conditions, and that can't continue without limit. This ordinance is not meant to be inhumane. It's meant to provide safe shelter for those living outside in terrible conditions. No human should be forced to live like that, and the city can't continue to allow people to live like that. I want to take a moment to publicly call out the statement that Representative Seth Walton felt he needed to make and to support this ordinance. I reject his characterization of those who attended the meetings and spoke out against the ordinance. To dismiss their views by saying, quote, "It's great to sit in a college dorm and show up at a city council meeting" is tone deaf at best. So many argue these days that young people are not involved, but when they do get involved, we don't like how they do it or what they say. These advocates were college students, business owners, professionals, teachers, and above all, neighbors and constituents. Representative Moulton also felt it was important for him to weigh in, although he didn't feel it was a federal issue. I could not disagree more. This is a federal issue. This is a state issue. Salem is not alone in trying to finance solutions, and we need a partnership with the federal government. We need Congress to act on housing assistance programs and requirements for mental health and substance use disorder benefits for all health plans. We need federal assistance to support housing first initiatives and a new approach to long-term mental health care. We need Congress and state government to recognize that single municipalities can't tackle this alone, and we need them to dig in and do the work, not simply offer sound bites in an election year.
Any further discussion? Councillor Stott.
No, I wanted to do that tonight to come prepared like fellow Councilor Marcelo, but I knew I would never be able to top that. But ditto to everything of what my fellow councilor said this evening, along with all of the community input that we received and comments from my fellow councilors. I just want to say I've been kind of listening during this process, thinking that we need to do something, and we all know that, and we all feel the enormous responsibility that comes with that. And when I say we, I don't mean just the council. Like, yes, it is here on our desks tonight, but we, the city of Salem, the community impact unit, the advocacy groups, everybody understands the enormous responsibility and what that means. The many nights of listening to public testimony, hearing the different options, I feel confident that we all agree on one thing, and that is that this ordinance is not going to solve the problem. This ordinance is not going to fix the homeless epidemic or crisis in our country. We do need our federal government and our state government to step up and support us. And I also am extremely disheartened by those comments by our elected representative in DC, stating that that's not the case. So how do we ask? This is a Band-Aid. I'm actually really concerned about what we're going to do in 2 years when ARPA funds expire. How are we going to continue the shelter? We are not going to be able to do this. The city of Salem is not going to be able to solve the homeless problem. But this is what we can do today, and this is what we can do tonight. And this is better than nothing. I do not agree that doing nothing and letting the situation continue, that is not healthy, that is not safe, as has been repeated over and over in these conversations. I feel my job as a counselor is to keep our community as safe and as healthy as possible. And there's no easy or correct or right answer here. But I think I know I will be voting in support of this ordinance tonight because that is the answer that I have. And that is the answer that is in front of us, but that is not the answer that is going to fix this problem. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I promise I'll be quick. I do appreciate the comments from my fellow councilors, and I just want to reiterate what I said Tuesday night, that I also appreciate the public comment. It's the concerns that have been expressed for our unhoused folks. And as was mentioned, this isn't a solution. These crises are many years in the making. As I had mentioned, we have redlining, zoning, other barriers when creating housing, systems that keep people in poverty, a lack of available health services, poor policies that Jason from LifeBridge had said. And the solutions are going to be lengthy, and we do need help outside of Salem. But I also hope, as I said Tuesday, that this creates a sense of urgency in what we can do here when it comes to supporting low threshold and transitional housing offered by LifeBridge and Harbor Lights. When those ideas and proposals come before us, El Centro, our community health center, I was there today. They treated me. They treat so many of our residents here, and they are looking for a new home on Derby Street to expand that. So I'm hoping this really, lights a fire on what we can do here as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the recommendation for adoption of the ordinance as amended for first passage, all those in favor?
Oh, can I make a comment?
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I said this at the Tuesday meeting, and it's really important. This ordinance is mandating that we are always, not just that we don't move people without a transition center, but we're always looking for shelter. And we need to have a preference that it's in Salem. Most of the people who are unhoused in Salem have some connection to Salem. They're either from Salem, they're connected to Salem in some way, and many of them do work here. I also think it's really important that as a ward counselor, the transition center is in my ward. I'm glad it's in my ward. but everyone who votes for this has to be okay with it being in their ward as well. In different parts of my life, I've worked with homeless children, and I do know, although I don't know as many of the people in some of the encampments, I do know a lot and interact with a lot of unhoused people in Salem. And I think we make a mistake by not seeing them for who they are and what they are potentially going to be. I spent almost a day with Jason Etheridge listening to the Supreme Court. And the three so-called liberal judges were trying to create a classification for homelessness. And the other judges are potentially going to criminalize homelessness and enable communities to do what Beverly did, which is to move people without cause. And we have instances with communities around us that are actually going to churches, which are providing some sanctuary for some unhoused people, and telling them because their neighbors or someone complained that they need to even move from a private property. And, you know, as Councilor Marcillo said, we're just not doing enough in our society. And, you know, I'm grateful for all the conversations I've had with people who are, you know, for and against this ordinance. But we really, not just the public, but our council, because even though this was presented to us from the mayor, it's now ours. We need to be accountable for this, and we need to make sure that what we do is as sensitive and humane as possible. And though I, you know, really do understand, you know, how residents and businesses are affected, I'm still really focused on the people who are in situations where they're vulnerable and susceptible to whatever. And so I'm going to vote for this. I do feel like this is going to hopefully cause us to do more work together, whether it's, you know, on financial things or whatever, but we really need to have more facility where unhoused people can have permanent, safe, and healthy housing. Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'm going to be so quick. I will not be voting for this ordinance. I think that won't be a surprise to anyone based on all the comments that I've made. But I do want to thank my colleagues for the comments that they've made, of which I agree with when it comes to, you know, our sense of compassion for our community, our sense of responsibility for keeping people safe, our disappointment in our congressmen. And I want to thank folks for their willingness and open-mindedness and patience to really focus on making this better and hearing out the many amendments that I submitted and the one that was talked about tonight. Although the process was painful, I think that we ended up with something a little bit better. And for those that spent hours on the phone with me talking through this as well, appreciate that. And most of all, I want to thank the many folks that came in here to speak on behalf of unhoused people. It's not very often that I think that they get a voice. And it was extremely heartwarming and inspiring to see many people see this room be filled with people that wanted to stick up for folks in their community and stick up for the rights of the most vulnerable group of people in our community. So I really appreciated that. And that's it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the recommendation for adoption of the ordinance as amended, Madam City Clerk, does this need to be a roll call vote or is this a hand vote? Okay, we'll do roll call. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
No.
Councilor Harvey?
Yes.
Councilor Jerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. Thank you. On the adoption of the camping ordinance for first passage as amended, we have 11 councilors voting, 10 in favor and 1 opposed. Matter carries. Councilor Varela.
A call for immediate consideration, so it shall not prevail.
Do we need to do that in here? This is just first
We can
passage.
still reconsider it.
On the motion for immediate reconsideration in the hopes it does not prevail, all those in favor, all opposed, the matter does not carry. Thank you, Councilor Varela. I just want to acknowledge Councilor Cohen for leading these two discussions. This is the hardest topic that we have covered as a councilor, at least since I've been on the council. Emotionally, intellectually, it's a difficult topic for I think all of us, and just appreciate the way that he handled these meetings, which were not easy meetings, and then appreciate everyone who gave public testimony here. We got a lot of feedback. I think as a council, I just not to continue to pat ourselves on the back, but I think over the last 3 years, this council has done a really good job of finding common ground and finding compromise and listening to each other and hearing each other out. So just appreciate all of you. Communications from city officials.
With the following orders submitted by the city clerk regarding new voting equipment.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move to adopt this by roll call vote.
Councilor Varela moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I had the pleasure to talk to our honorable city clerk about this. This is long awaited. So with these machines, I'll be brief. This will be, we're going to be going with the company LHS, which we already currently have the old voting machines. And the new machines were 20% cheaper than the competitor ES&S. So I'm glad to see this come in, and we will be able to formally be in compliance with our voting equipment going forward. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Councilor Varela's motion of adoption of this order, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Harvey?
Yes.
Councilor Jerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo? Yes. Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. On adoption of the order, we have 11 councilors voting, 11 in favor, and none opposed. The matter carries. Further communications from city officials.
We have the city solicitor submitting 3 orders relative to exemptions to Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 20B.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move for adoption.
Councilor Marcillo moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, President. These are 3 employees currently working in different departments in the city, and the conflict of interest law requires the city council to approve through 20B exemption that they are allowed to contract with other departments and also receive pay. And so the 3 are Linda Abeen, who's a paraprofessional at the Saltonstall School, who is going to be teaching art for the Council on Aging and the Parks and Recreation Department. Kristen Stevens, who works at Collins Middle School, who will be doing a lacrosse clinic for the Parks and Rec Department, and Brian Donnelly, who works at the library, who will be painting electrical boxes for the Beautification Committee.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on Councilor Marcillo's motion for adoption of the orders, all in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Petitions.
We have the following license applications for limousine, public guards, taxi operators, and vehicle for hire operator only.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that these be granted.
Councilor Marcillo moves these be granted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 3 claims.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Councilor Marcillo moves to refer these to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 1 constable bond.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved.
Councilor Marcillo moves these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Councilor Prosnewski.
Yeah.
Recognize Councilor Hapworth.
You have no cushion on your seat, Councilor Prosniewski, or less cushion. I just want to just take my goal is never to come down here or to come down here as infrequently as possible, but just want to recognize that we have Rochelle Sport retiring tomorrow after 24 years of service to the city. For many of us on the council, Rochelle was one of the first people we interacted with as we came in through the elections office. And it's easy to overlook the work that anyone does, but I think we've all seen the hard work that Rochelle's put into elections and the difficulty that we've gone through. I mean, we've run some great elections in this city, some clean elections despite a lot of challenges and difficulties, and some of us have been through those difficulties. And Rochelle has been a complete professional throughout the entire process. And also, just on a personal side, Rochelle is just somebody who, if you meet Rochelle for the first time, you feel like you already know her for some reason. You feel like you are already friends with her, and she's just a very pleasant face to run into in the council. So just want to appreciate her and ask the city clerk to send a city seal to Rochelle and just thank her for her service.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none. Councilor Hapworth?
Call for adjournment.
Thank you. We are adjourned.